Grammy Award-winning hip-hop artist Wyclef Jean was mistakenly detained as a robbery suspect in Los Angeles. He was handcuffed for about 6 minutes and was livid as a result, but his car did match the description of the suspect's car, which is why authorities detained him. Now, of course, they made a huge mistake, and so the Sheriff's Department in Los Angeles has released an apology statement, and they essentially say that they've apologized for any inconvenience this process caused to Mr. Jean. And also, it is unfortunate that Mr. Jean was detained for 6 minutes during this investigation, as he had no involvement whatsoever in this violent crime. Now, Wyclef did tweet and also Instagram post about the situation. Here is a video from his Instagram page showing what happened. And in this video, you can hear him threatening to sue the cops. So take a look.
I'm a recording monitor. I'm coming from the studio. I was recording. Could you give him the address to the studio? But this is, just so y'all know, I am going to sue the LA. Please, I am going to sue you because you took off my hat, you put cuffs on me.
So, believe it or not, I'm a little split on this story, okay? So, by the way, I like how the cops put in there. He was detained for 6 minutes, only 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so why am I split on it?
Wait,
you want to jump in?
Before you explain why you're split on it, I don't even know if I told you guys why cops were looking for a suspect. There was apparently a violent robbery, and so it happened in West Hollywood. And look, I have to say, police officers in West Hollywood are actually pretty awesome. And that's not just me saying it as like a white girl living in West Hollywood. I just know from experience and the way that they react to members of the community that they're pretty great. So I don't think that there was any foul play here. It's just that his car matched the description of the suspect's car. Go ahead.
So, but that's what the cops say, and I'm a tiny bit surprised by that because Wyclef must be driving a pretty nice car. And in this case, the suspect allegedly attacked and held up this man and woman at gunpoint, and then jumped back in his car and drove away. Are robbery suspects now driving Bentleys? I don't know what Wyclef's car is, but like it's just weird. And so what they don't say is the suspect was black and Wyclef kind of looked like him. But that's kind of implicit in that statement. So without the context of the gross discrimination that African Americans have been facing in this country and how they systematically get pulled over wrongly all the time, I would say this story is not that big a deal, okay? But there is that context, so I'm not saying it's not a big deal because context is important.
So here's what happened though. Cops had handcuffed him and detained him for about 6 minutes, as they say, and they didn't let him go until other cops showed up and they kind of like cleared him of any wrongdoing. And so I'm wondering what happened. Like, did other cops show up and they're like, hey, that's Wyclef Jean. Like, and he's tweeting about this, so like, let's let him go. Because I feel like if he didn't have a public following, then the situation might have ended up differently.
Yeah, and so look, let me quote Reuters here. The statement says Jean was placed in handcuffs because he displayed, quote, furtive movements and demeanor, such as walking towards the trunk of the car despite deputies asking him not to. So that, let me just then bifurcate this. So on the one hand, it is entirely possible that he did match the description, not just because he was black, but he kind of actually did look like the guy, and the car did look like the car, and then he didn't listen to all the orders, so they're like, wait, I gotta just pause here for a second, and since you're not listening to orders, I gotta handcuff you for a brief period of time, and then other guys come in and go, no, that's not him, and then we unhandcuff you and we're done with it, and it's not that big a deal, right? Wyclef says, I was treated like a criminal until other police showed up and pointed out they had the wrong person. Yeah, because they thought you were, right? Now, it might be that they thought he was because he's black and he was in the neighborhood. And again, the context matters. Or it might be because he looked like the guy. And so there's a tinge here of the celebrity saying like, how dare you do it to me? And so maybe I'm totally misreading that and being super unfair to Wyclef, right? But yeah, I feel like this stuff happens to people all the time.
And it does happen to people all the time, and it sucks. And look, honestly, in situations like this, I don't know what cops are supposed to do if the person does seem to match the description of the suspect, whether it's their car or their physical appearance, whatever it is, right? So do the cops just say, well, we don't know for sure, so we're just gonna let him go? No, they have to stop him, right? So like, I get that, but also, I did think about what it must feel like to be a celebrity and not be recognized by people. You know what I mean?
So why?
No, I know, but like, I wonder if that got under his skin as well, right?
It might be. You know, Ali G used to do this skit, and he would he'd get Newt Gingrich, and then he'd get him to spell his name, and he'd keep misspelling it. And it would get under his skin so much because that's his ego, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, how could you not know who I am, right? And that's a brilliant way that he undermined that or showed that, highlighted it. So in this case, if cops come to me and they say, okay, well, look, we're gonna detain you for a second because you match a suspect, I'd be like, I think if they were reasonable, if, that's a giant if, I think, oh, okay, go ahead, run it, because I'm not the suspect. It's not that big a deal, and you'll sort it out, and we'll figure it out. Now, they detain you for 6 hours or 6 days, and there's some sort of injustice.
That's when you say, someone please call 911.
Yes, then it's horrible. But if they detain me for 6 minutes while they figured out if I was a robbery suspect or not, I don't think that's the end of the world. Now, on the other hand, Wyclef says, I'm sure no father wants his sons or daughters to see him in handcuffs, especially if he's innocent. And if his kids are in the car and they see that happening, and then he has a sense, as Johnny Cochran used to say, that it doesn't matter how successful you are as an African American, they're still gonna handcuff you in front of your kids. Well, that's super frustrating, and I can understand his frustration about that, but the devil's in the details here. The question is, did the cops in that brief period of time act reasonably or not? And it is super hard for us to know.
Yeah.
And I just think that's the reality. Podcast The Young Turks anytime you want. tytnetwork.com/join.
I think it's weird.
No, it's not weird. In fact, you'll think,
I'm like a smart person.
do it now. tytnetwork.com/join.